The palace walls had seen centuries of scandal, whispers, and secrets, but nothing quite like this. One moment, the royal household seemed steady. The next, a phone call shattered that fragile calm. Camilla, normally the picture of composure, collapsed to the floor, her grief raw and unfiltered. In that instant, Kate stood silent, watching, her own heart twisting between sympathy and resolve. Then, as the heavy doors of Buckingham Palace slammed shut behind her family the next morning, Kate allowed herself the faintest smile, not of victory, but of certainty. A storm was coming for the monarchy, and for the first time, two very different women had found themselves unexpectedly bound together in its eye. If you find royal history as gripping as a novel, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into royal moments, and share this story with someone who loves the drama behind the palace gates. Every click helps us bring you more untold stories that connect the private and the public lives of the royals. The golden light of evening settled over Anmer Hall, soft and familiar, painting the kitchen in shades of warmth. It was the kind of night William and Kate cherished, their private bubble of family life far away from the weight of titles and tradition. Charlotte was arranging carrots like tiny soldiers across her plate. George methodically set the table with almost adult precision, and little Louis roared around the room with his toy
leaning
cars.
against the doorframe.
The kitchen
It was a
noisy,
moment to hold on
chaotic,
to.
ordinary,
He often looked at his family
perfect.
this way, as if he was storing memories for the days when life might not allow such peace. And Kate, with her sleeves rolled up and hands deep in pastry dough, caught his gaze. Their shared glance carried years of understanding. This was their sanctuary. And then the phone rang. It wasn't unusual for palace calls to come through, but something about the shrillness of the tone sliced through the air like a warning bell. The children froze, sensing the change without needing words. William answered, his expression hardening with every second. Kate watched the color drain from his face. "Papa," William finally said. That single word, spoken with such weight, told Kate everything. This wasn't duty calling. This was personal. The children's eyes fixed on him, searching for reassurance, but none came. "Tonight?" William asked quietly. "We'll come tonight." When he ended the call, the silence in the kitchen was unbearable. George, with a blunt honesty only a child could have, finally whispered, "Is Grandpa Charles all right?" William's voice was steady, but his hand gripped the counter for support. "We need to go to London. Immediately." Kate's heart sank. She'd seen that look before, the same one William wore in the darkest moments of their early marriage when every call from the palace could shift the course of their lives. She knew then that whatever waited in London would not be something easily explained away. Kate knelt to the children's level, forcing calm into her voice. "We're going to see Grandpa Charles. Pack your things quickly, just for one night." The children scattered upstairs with unusual seriousness, though Kate caught the worry in George's eyes. Alone with William again, she finally asked a question that had been burning inside her. "What did he say?" William shook his head, his voice almost breaking. He wouldn't explain, just that it couldn't wait. Kate wiped her flour-dusted hands on her apron, trying to steady her breath. The shepherd's pie would have to wait. Everything would have to wait. Upstairs, little footsteps echoed as the children hurried to pack, their whispers carrying the nervous energy they didn't yet understand. Louis was the first to return, dragging his small overnight bag across the floor. He wore his favorite pajamas, the ones with rockets printed on them. With childlike sincerity, he announced, "I packed extra cars, in case Grandpa Charles wants to play." Kate's throat tightened. George and Charlotte followed close behind, bags in hand. George's jaw was set with determination, already protective of his siblings. Charlotte clutched her worn stuffed rabbit, her small voice uncertain. "Are we sleeping at the palace?" "Just for tonight," William said gently, though Kate could hear the strain beneath his reassurance. The drive to London was unusually quiet. The children dozed in fits, Charlotte leaning against the window, Louis curled in his car seat. Only George stayed wide awake, staring out at the blur of countryside giving way to city lights. At one red light, he finally whispered the question that pierced Kate's heart. "Mommy, is this like when you told us about Granny Diana?" Kate froze, her mind flashing back to that painful conversation. William caught her eye in the mirror. Their son was only 10, but far too perceptive for his age. She forced her voice steady. Sometimes grown-ups have difficult talks. Tonight, we'll face it together, like we always do. By the time their car rolled through the gates of Buckingham Palace, the air inside was thick with unspoken fear. The palace loomed in the night, its familiar facade suddenly cold, imposing. Crossing its threshold, Kate felt a familiar shift. The transformation from Kate the mother to Catherine the Duchess, stepping into a world where personal emotions were often pushed aside for duty. Inside, the corridors seemed hushed, the staff unusually formal. Their footsteps echoed with a weight of expectation. Kate could feel the change in the air. News had already spread among the palace ranks, though no one dared say it aloud. They were shown to a private room. The children curled up with blankets and iPads, but their eyes kept drifting to the door, waiting. William paced in silence, his face drawn. Kate excused herself briefly to the bathroom, just to steal a moment alone. She pressed her hands to the sink, staring at her reflection. 30 seconds of fear, she told herself. Then she straightened her shoulders, wiped her eyes, and returned. Moments later, footsteps echoed in the hall. The door opened, and Charles entered. Kate's breath caught at once. He looked thinner, older, frailer than he had just weeks ago. In that instant, she understood. Whatever had pulled them here tonight was not a matter of ceremony. It was something far heavier, something that would change everything. The private study was dimly lit, the fire crackling in the hearth but giving little warmth. William and Kate sat side by side on a leather sofa, their hands clasped tightly, as if bracing against an unseen storm. Across from them, Charles lowered himself into his chair with a heaviness that spoke louder than words. Kate noticed the tremor in his hand as he reached for a glass of water, the faint hollowness around his eyes. It was subtle, but undeniable. She felt her chest tighten. "Papa." William's voice broke the silence, soft but weighted with a son's fear. Charles exhaled slowly, his gaze fixed on the fire. "There is something I should have told you sooner. I kept hoping, praying perhaps, that it would not come to this." He paused, then lifted his eyes, meeting theirs with quiet gravity. "The cancer has returned." The words struck like a hammer against glass, shattering the fragile calm of the room. Kate felt William's grip on her hand tighten until it almost hurt. For a moment, the fire's crackle was the only sound. William swallowed hard. "But you were in remission. The doctors said." "I was," Charles interrupted gently. "But it has come back, stronger than before, more aggressive." Kate's heart pounded. She wanted protest, to deny it, but the look in Charles' eyes told her there was no refuge in denial. This was truth, unvarnished and merciless. "How long?" William asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The doctors won't give exact numbers. Could be months, could be years, but I may have less time than we imagined to prepare you for what comes next." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Kate's mind raced. Not just grief, succession. Not just illness, but the crown shifting earlier than any of them were ready for. Before anyone could speak again, the door creaked open. A breach of protocol. And there, in the doorway, stood Camilla, but not the composed consort the world knew. Her hair was undone, her makeup streaked with tears. She crossed the room in hurried, unsteady steps, her voice breaking. "I can't sit in that other room pretending I don't know. I heard the calls, Charles. The doctors, the treatments." Her voice cracked as she fell to her knees beside his chair, clutching his hands. 6 months, maybe less. That's what they told you, isn't it?" The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Kate froze, watching this woman, so often guarded, composed, now raw and undone. "I can't lose you," Camilla whispered through sobs. "Not now. Not when we finally had our time." For the first time, Kate felt something shift inside her, a pang of sympathy she had not expected. In Camilla's anguish, she saw her own fear reflected. If it were William in that chair, she too would be on the floor, begging the universe for more time. And in that moment, As a fire crackled and the palace walls seemed to close in, two women who had once stood worlds apart silently understood each other for the first time. The firelight flickered across Camilla's tear-streaked face as she clung to Charles's hands. For a moment, the queen consort looked nothing like the poised figure who had spent decades weathering public scrutiny. She looked simply human, broken, frightened, desperate. Kate hesitated only a moment before moving. She knelt beside Camilla, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "It's all right," she whispered, though she knew it wasn't. "You love him. Of course you're afraid." Camilla looked up, startled by Kate's gesture. The younger woman's calm eyes met Hayes, and something unspoken passed between them. For the first time, Kate wasn't just her husband's daughter-in-law. She was another wife, another mother, standing at the same crossroads of fear and devotion. "I've been researching," Camilla said quickly, her voice trembling. "There are clinics, treatments abroad, Switzerland, America. They are trying new methods. Charles, we can fight this." Charles's hand stroked hers gently, his tone steady. "My darling, I'm 75 years old. I have lived a full life, a meaningful one. I've raised my sons. I've served my country. I've found love with you. If this is the end of my story, then I can make my peace with it." "I can't," Camilla replied fiercely, tears spilling fresh. "I won't make peace with it." The room fell quiet except for her quiet sobs. William sat rigid, torn between his role as a prince and as a son. Kate, however, felt clarity settling over her like steel. She understood something vital in that moment. Grief would not break them. It would define how they carried forward. The crown would not wait for them to be ready. Their children's innocence would not last forever. But she and William could choose how to face it. Later, after Charles had urged him to rest, Kate and William stepped into the palace garden. The night air was sharp, scented faintly of roses. William paced the gravel path, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his voice breaking. "I'm not ready, Kate. God, I'm not ready for any of this." Kate reached for his arm, pulling him close. "None of us are ever ready. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I wasn't ready to marry into this life. But we figured it out, and we'll figure this out too." His eyes searched Hayes, full of fear, but also trust. She held his gaze firmly. "We tell the children the truth. Not all of it, not yet, but enough so they don't fill the silence with worse things. And we protect them, no matter what happens." Her words, steady and practical, gave William something to cling to. For a moment, the weight of kingship felt less crushing. As they walked back through the palace, Kate knew her role had shifted. She was no longer just standing beside William. She was anchoring him, and in Camilla's tears, she had glimpsed the reality of her own future. Two women, bound not by rivalry, but by love and loss. Two queens, one present, one future, both clinging to the same truth. Family must come first. The morning light poured into Buckingham Palace, gilding its corridors in soft gold. But beneath the grandeur, a quiet unease lingered. The night's revelations had shifted something irreversible. Charles looked weary but composed at breakfast, his voice steady as he spoke of transitions, duties, and timelines. Camilla, now immaculate once again, carried herself with regal dignity, though her eyes betrayed the storm she had weathered. Kate watched closely. She recognized it, the fragile balance between private grief and public performance. It was a tightrope she herself would soon be forced to walk. And yet, beneath the layers of protocol, she felt a new understanding had taken root. Later, as she visited Camilla privately, the queen consort's mask slipped just slightly. "When Charles is gone," Camilla admitted quietly, "will there still be a place for me, or will I become an embarrassment?" The vulnerability in that question struck Kate to her core. "There will always be a place," she said firmly. "You're part of this family, part of his legacy. William and I won't forget that." For a moment, Camilla's eyes softened with relief. They spoke of the children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, and the need to protect their innocence for as long as possible. In those exchanges, Kate felt the foundation of an unexpected alliance. Not rivals, not adversaries, but two women determined to safeguard those they loved. By late morning, it was time to leave. The children skipped lightly through the halls, their small voices echoing in the vast palace. George walked with quiet seriousness. Charlotte clutched her rabbit, and Louis, ever innocent, raced his cars along the marble floor. Kate glanced back as they reached the great palace doors. In an upstairs window, Camilla stood watching them depart. Her figure was still, her gaze unreadable, but it carried the weight of someone who understood the inevitability of change. The doors closed behind them with a heavy finality. Ancient doors that had swung for kings and queens across centuries, now shutting on yet another chapter. Inside the car, William sat in silence, the reality of succession pressing down on his shoulders. "Everything changes now," he murmured. Kate reached for his hand, squeezing gently. She looked at their children, absorbed in drawings, cars, and books, and then back at the man beside her. "Not everything," she said quietly. "Not us." As the countryside opened before them, Kate allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Not triumph, not relief, but determination. The monarchy might shift, duties might double, and responsibilities might arrive sooner than expected, but the heartbeat of their family would remain, and that, she knew, would be their strength. The palace doors may have closed, but for William and Kate, the story was only beginning. Behind the grandeur and ceremony lies something far more human: love, grief, resilience, and the quiet resolve to protect their children no matter the cost. Kate's faint smile, as those doors shut, wasn't a smile of victory. It was a recognition of what truly mattered. History has seen many royal families tested by duty and tragedy. But perhaps what makes this moment so powerful is its simplicity: a mother's promise, a father's fear, a family determined to hold on to their normality as long as they can. So, what comes next for the House of Windsor? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. When the crown presses heavily on William's shoulders, Kate will be there, steady as steel, reminding him of the life and the love they are fighting to preserve.